Good afternoon. Welcome to Latvenergo Investor Webinar. We will begin with a presentation from the company, followed by a live Q&A session. If you'd like to join the discussion and ask your question to the company, please submit it in writing through the Q&A window or raise your hand and be unmuted after the presentation is over. For your convenience, the webinar is being recorded. A replay will be available shortly after the session. Now let me introduce today's host, Latvenergo Management Board member and CFO Guntars Balčūns. Guntar, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Guntars Balčūns, and in this session I will present Latvenergo Group financial results for the first half of 2025. Before we explore the financial results, let's take a look at Latvenergo Group. Latvenergo is one of the leading energy suppliers in the Baltics and the largest electricity producer and the largest green energy producer in the Baltics. In the first half of 2026, we produced 2.6 terawatt-hours of electricity. From that, 66% is produced from renewables. Our business is structured in two segments: generation and trade, and distribution. Distribution is vital as it brings cash flow stability. Meanwhile, generation and trade segment focus is on expanding renewable assets and on expanding our customer base in the Baltics. At this point of time, we have already secured 1,144 megawatts of solar and wind capacity, with 179 megawatts already built and operational, and have increased our customer base to 911,000 customers. Latvenergo is state-owned enterprise holding credit rating of Baa2 with a stable outlook. Let me first highlight the key market factors and events that have affected our business performance. Market overview. In the first half of 2025, electricity market prices in the Nordic countries decreased, mainly due to increased renewable energy production, particularly from solar power plants. In contrast, the price in Poland, Germany, France, and Great Britain have increased, and it was mainly driven by the higher natural gas and CO2 prices. In the Baltics, the price increase was more moderate. On the one hand, the prices increased due to the lower generation at Daugavas hydropower plants and the shutdown of Estlink 2 interconnection, reducing electricity imports from Nordic countries. On the other hand, the expansion of wind and solar energy capacities in the region helped to partially offset these pressures. Nevertheless, the region still faces an electricity production deficit, and as a result, Baltic electricity prices increased by 4 to 7%, reaching 87 euros per megawatt hour. Shifting our focus on financial performance, this slide provides overview of our key figures for the first half of 2025. The results align with the market trends. Lower energy sales prices and a decline in the volumes of energy sold on the wholesale market have led to an 11% decline in revenues. Meanwhile, the group's EBIT decreased by 31% due to lower generation at Daugavas hydropower plants and amounted to 272 million euros. At the same time, our investments more than doubled and reached 392 million euros. Of these, about 75% were invested in wind and solar assets. If you look at EBITDA dynamics, then the largest impact on EBITDA decrease come from the generation and trade segment, and the decline was mainly due to lower generation at Daugavas hydropower plants. But now let's take a look at each segment separately. So in the first half of 2025, generation and trade segment accounted for more than 70% of total group revenue and EBITDA. Segment revenue decline was mainly driven by 80% lower electricity retail sale prices and lower volume sold on the wholesale market. Meanwhile, segment's EBITDA was mainly affected by 36% or almost 1 terawatt-hour drop in generation at the Daugavas hydropower plants. Let's take a look at our electricity generation production indicators. So in total, we generated 2.6 terawatt-hours of electricity, representing 24% of total electricity generated in the Baltics. In the first half of 2024, so in the last year, an exceptionally high inflow in the Daugavas River led to one of the strongest Daugavas hydropower plant production volume. This year, however, lower inflow in the Daugavas River brought generation back down, reaching 1.7 terawatt-hours, dropping by almost 1 terawatt-hour. That is even less than the long-term average output. Nevertheless, Q3 results expected to be much stronger thanks to the rainy summer, which improved hydro inflow in Daugavas River. Meanwhile, our newly built solar and wind assets of 179 megawatts are already showing a positive impact on results. The Akmenes wind power park, with nearly 20 megawatts of capacity, is expected to make a contribution in the second half of this year. That will be followed by other solar and wind projects that are expected to become operational in 2026 and 2027. Despite relatively weak results from Daugavas hydropower plants, we remain the largest electricity producer in the Baltics and the largest renewable electricity producer in the Baltics. Now let's shift on our focus to some key highlights in our trade activities. In the first half of 2025, our electricity customer base grew by 3%, exceeding 911,000 customers. This aligns with the group strategy, which aims to expand our customer base. In the first half of 2025, we managed to increase our customer base by 11% in Lithuania and Estonia, reflecting strong customer interest in electron products across the Baltics. Meanwhile, the number of our gas customers is up by 20%, exceeding 70,000 customers in the Baltics. In the first half of 2025, we sold 3.2 terawatt-hours of electricity to our retail customers. This secured our Baltic retail electricity market share of 23%. Meanwhile, our natural gas sales in the Baltics increased by 44% and reached almost 1 terawatt-hour of gas. Another strategic target is to advance in the electromobility business in the Baltics. Together with our partners, by the end of June, we provided a total of 1,126 charging ports for Electrum Drive customers across the Baltics. Our plan is to expand the network to at least 1,200 ports by 2026. Now let's take a look at the distribution segment. At the end of June, the asset value of this segment was 1.9 billion euros, making up 26% of group EBITDA. The segment provides electricity distribution services to approximately 800,000 customers in Latvia. In the first half of 2025, the distribution segment benefited from an increase in electricity consumption in Latvia, as well as from higher customer connection capacity revenues and lower electricity costs. The segment's revenue increased by 1%, reaching 189 million euros. Meanwhile, the segment's EBIT increased by 8% to 71 million euros. In line with the group strategy, the target is to continuously and cost-effectively improve the distribution network quality. To achieve this, capital investment program is being implemented, which involves expanding underground cables and increasing the use of insulated wires. In the first half of 2025, the SAIFI and SAIDI indicators have improved by around 26%. The modernization of electricity distribution system is also supported by EU funding under Recovery and Resilience Facility, with a total funding of nearly 102 million euros. Now let's turn to the investments. With the rapid growth of wind and solar energy projects, the investments by Latvenergo more than doubled and reached 392 million euros. About three-quarters of this amount, or 291 million euro, was invested in new wind and solar generation assets. Meanwhile, approximately 20% of the group investments were dedicated to improve distribution service reliability and quality. More closer look at specific renewable projects and the development pipeline will be followed in the upcoming slides. On this slide, you can see both the structure and the maturity profile of our debt portfolio. Starting with the chart on the right, our funding sources are well diversified. International financial institutions account for the largest share, or 39%, followed closely by commercial banks at 37%. Green bonds represent 24% of total, highlighting our strong commitment to sustainable financing. Looking at the bar chart on the left, the maturity profile is well spread over time. The bars represent our financial obligations, broken down into the loans in the dark blue and green bonds in the green. In 2026, our maturity obligation remains at low level, entirely made up of loans. However, in 2027, we face a peak in maturities, totaling 190 million euros, and more than half of this is tied to our green bonds. Overall, our financing structure is robust, with well-diversified funding sources and balanced maturity profiles. Now, let's turn to the current events. In this section, we will provide an overview of some key events important to our operations. Following this, we will dive into the development of our renewable generation portfolio. So in this slide, I want to highlight few important events. In particular, I would like to draw your attention to the three events displayed at the bottom. In the March, Moody's published an updated credit opinion of Latvenergo. The outcome was positive. Our rating remains unchanged at Baa with level with a stable outlook. So yes, this reaffirms the company's strong financial position and stable prospects. Then in May, the shareholder meeting of Latvenergo approved the launch of new public bond offering program. This marks an important step in strengthening our financial strategy. Looking ahead over next 3 years, we plan to raise funding in the capital markets through the bond issuance of approximately 300 to 350 million euros per year, with the first issue expected in the next 2 to 6 months period. This will ensure that we can meet our financial investment needs while maintaining balanced capital structure. On July 2025, Latvenergo and state-owned company Latvijas Radio Television Center signed a memorandum of understanding with Tele company regarding potential acquisition of its shares in TET and Latvijas mobilais telephones, which both are major players in Latvian telecommunications sector. Signing of MOU marks the beginning of approximately 1 year long process, which could end up with buyout of Tele shares and Latvenergo becoming minority shareholder of both companies. As of now, the process of selection of consultant has been started. As soon as they are appointed, they would help to carry out technical, legal, commercial, and financial due diligence to assess value of the target companies and feasibility of the transaction, as well as would assist in attraction of experienced international private investor. The potential closing of transaction could happen at the end of the first half of 2026 if all preconditions of the deal are met. The engagement of Latvenergo in transaction is guided by commercial principles by assessing the synergies as well as economic benefits. We believe that if the negotiations are successful, it could result in the deal that could open the opportunity to create high-value tech company with significant export potential. Yes, regarding development of RES generation portfolio, as you may know, Latvenergo Group strategy for 2026 foresees expansion of the renewable energy generation portfolio by 600 megawatts by 2026. We are well on track to reach this target. Over the last 12 months, we have secured almost 500 megawatts of new projects. Altogether, 1,144 megawatts of solar and wind capacity has already been secured, with 179 megawatts already built and operational. Our largest project to date includes the Aizputs power park with a total capacity of 265 megawatts, which is expected to start operation later this year. Telšiai wind power park in Lithuania with total capacity of 124 megawatts. Latflora Energy wind power park in Latvia with 109 megawatts. Both wind parks expected to start energy production in 2026. However, Pienava wind project commercial operational date is scheduled in 2027. In addition to expanding renewable energy capacities, Latvenergo plans to invest in 250 megawatts with a capacity of 500 megawatt hours of battery storage by 2030, which will create synergies with Latvenergo generations and sales portfolio. The investments in battery storage is very important as it will allow to improve results by capturing excess wind and solar power and releasing it during the peak demand, and by providing balancing services for transmission system operators. Let's review some of the key highlights from our presentation. In the first half of 2025, we generated 2.6 terawatt hours of electricity, 66% which is green, making us the largest renewable electricity producer in the Baltics. We have made great progress in achieving our customer growth targets. In the first half of 2025, our customer base grew by 3%, exceeding 911,000 customers, while our number of gas customers increased by 20%, exceeding 70,000 customers. At this point in time, we can see that the group medium-term strategy target of increasing renewable energy generation portfolio by 600 megawatts by 2026 is planned to be achieved. We have already secured 1,144 megawatts of solar and wind capacities. Investments in renewable generation capacity have risen to 2 times to 392 million euros in the first half of 2025. In conclusion, while we experience a relatively lower EBIT and profit, our results remain strong and align with the overall market trends. So thank you for your attention, and now I am open to any question.
Yes, let's now open the floor for questions. Please submit them in writing through the Q&A window or raise your hand to be unmuted. We have not received any questions prior to the call. Let's wait a moment to see if any participants have something to add right now. All right, I don't see any hand raised. Neither we have received any question in written form. Therefore, we will be concluding the call and concluding the Q&A session. Participants, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. See you next time.